Hello there. Um, um, Anyone who's been watching my videos on here, on my last one I did a little bit about special needs. I just thought I would take that maybe a few steps further and do more specific videos, and hope I can help somebody out there who may have worries about their children, or any worries in that area. So in this video, I'd like to talk a little bit about dyspraxia, which is often referred to as the hidden disability because it's not maybe as obvious and not really as heard of as many other disabilities, but can be just as worrying for a parent and just as difficult for the child, let's be honest. So again, as I've said, I can only talk from personal experience, but I'm quite happy to answer any questions. I really just want to help other parents going through it, because through my own experience, that's where you get the most information and the most support, is through other parents who have been there, who are going through it. This is where you get most information. So, to start off with, like I say in my previous videos, I have 3 sons. My older 2, who are now nearly 17 and 14, both officially diagnosed with dyspraxia. My youngest, it seems fairly likely, but no one's quite ready to say it. I mean, he's having the therapy that you have, with it, which is occupational therapy, to help with various difficulties. And all his teachers have said it recently, so I'm pretty sure that's what it is again, though to a lesser extent maybe. So, what is dyspraxia, I suppose, to start with. Dyspraxia used to be known, and I believe in some areas is still referred to, wrongly, as clumsy child syndrome. So straight away that tells you one of the main symptoms of it is that the child can be an adult. Believe me, I know adults that probably would have been diagnosed had they been born these days. More information around. So, like I say, being clumsy or uncoordinated is a nicer way of saying it. Actually, is a major symptom, and this may not necessarily just be things like, I mean, in my son's case, he covered all areas of it, but one would be the falling over, constantly falling over, and that's to do with it can be to do with also gross motor, which is obviously your arms and your legs. Anything gross is obviously big. So you think of things like ball skills, maybe running, jumping, hopping, which is all things that they do as part of the assessment. To things like pedaling a bike, which my older children can't do. The spatial awareness is a huge part of that. That's to do with not knowing where your body is in relation to the space around you, which could be why you walk into things, bang into people. That's been a difficulty with all of mine, I'd say, really, particularly my oldest son. And you also have areas like they call it the fine motor skills, so that would cover things like handwriting, which again, all 3, I mean, that's the major concern with my youngest at the moment, is his handwriting, and he's 9. So fine motor wouldn't just be handwriting, we're talking anything, involves anything fiddly, so using scissors. And self-help skills is a big one that people with dyspraxia tend to have difficulty with, so that could be things like doing buttons, zips, using cutlery, again, like I say, using scissors, anything that involves having to be sort of precise with things. And that's an area, like I say, all of my children struggled with. My oldest son was not diagnosed until he was 6, which I believe is quite a common age group for people to start picking up on these difficulties. I think mainly because that's the year that maybe you have to do more academic stuff in school. It's also to do with organisational skills and planning, multiplanning they call it, which is where the body is having to, body and brain have to work together to plan any movement. If you're going to get out of a chair, your body and brain have to work together. This is what I'm going to do. This is the muscles that have to work, and it all's meant to work in quite a specific way. And if you're dyspraxic, the messages don't necessarily go through as quick as they should. So that's why you can end up appearing quite clumsy and uncoordinated. Therapy-wise, actually, before I get into therapy-wise, I don't know if it's the same in all areas. Again, like I say, I'm not a doctor, and I'm only speaking from my personal experience and experience of people I know. Dyspraxia can only be diagnosed by a paediatrician, not a teacher. Though in my son's case it sort of has been, bless them. But the crazy thing is, in order for a paediatrician to diagnose it, they normally have to have been assessed by an occupational therapist or physiotherapist, and they're the ones that know. They've seen it a million times. They know when they see that child come in and they get them to do walking in a straight line, ball test, ball skills test, all these things. They know, whether your child's dyspraxic, but they can't tell you. They're not allowed to tell you anymore in this area. We have to be seen by a paediatrician, which is why my 9-year-old has not been officially diagnosed, and my older two have. And I would say, whether I'm going to take it to that stage with him, because I've had the experience of it before, I know what to do to help my child with, with some of the symptoms. He's already under occupational therapy for the handwriting side of things. Whether I will go the whole gamut and go and get him officially diagnosed, I don't know. But for the oldest, and when you're first going through it, definitely. Because it's not about labelling your child as some people have you believe, and your child has special needs. It's about, again, I think I may have said it in previous books, knowledge is power. If you know what that is that's causing your child's difficulties, not only can you then go when you're fighting through schools or whatever to get help, which I'm quite happy to do a further blog on if anyone wants to hear it, because you're then able to say, look, this is what my child has. My child has a recognised condition. You have to help. It's also, you're able to get research. You're able to get support for yourself, which is a huge thing. Because how can you support your child if you're struggling yourself? So, don't be put off by this, you're labelling your child, because you're doing it for your child. Plus that child is going to grow up. Dyspraxic child becomes a dyspraxic adult. Same as an autistic child is an autistic adult. They have the right to know what caused their difficulties and that it's not their fault. That was a huge thing with my son, my oldest. The day I sat him down to talk to him about dyspraxia, he wasn't ready to be told. He was diagnosed with autism 3 years after the dyspraxia diagnosis, because other problems came up. But he used to come home, he was very aware, he could see how the children could maybe draw better, their handwriting was better, they were better at sports. He was very, very aware of being different, as it were. And he used to come home and blame himself. I'm no good, I'm rubbish, I'm useless, and I couldn't bear it. So as soon as I thought I was able to actually sit him down properly, I sat him down and told him he was dyspraxic. And, it was a huge thing. I was dreading having that conversation. Talked about difficulties, and he was so relieved that, he said, I can tell people now I'm not stupid, I'm not clumsy, I'm dyspraxic, there's a reason for this, I didn't do it, this is something else that's happened to me. And he's had some comfort in that. Now he's much older, he's able to research these things himself. Again, knowledge being power again, and being comfort. The therapies, like I say, you get, the main ones for this tend to be occupational therapy and physio. And occupational therapy, one of the things I will say actually, to give some advice out there, is one of the things occupational therapy constantly talk about. They're more to do with your day-to-day things you can do to make things easier. Physio is obviously to do with building up muscle tone. They tend to be quite weak, and my son's case is both very low muscle tone, quite weak. Occupational therapy has been brilliant. They tend to be things like, I keep digressing, sorry, sitting at a table, the child say they're doing the homework, or, again, schools should be saying it. I feel very, very strongly that schools should be pointing this out to kids, just generally. And they could do that at the start of a lesson. It's not too much to do. It doesn't take up any more time than saying to sit quietly. They need to be sat on a chair with the bottom shuffled to the back,